Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen, the channel that brings you your team every single day. All the latest news, views, updates, signatures, hopefully, rumours and speculation, as well as club statements, updates and live streams and podcasts and so much more. And do you know what we charge you for this? We charge you for this. We charge you absolutely nothing for this at all. Unless, of course, you want to become a member, then it's 99p. Join button is down below. Now, I won't be appearing on camera today. A few technical difficulties with my laptop, so I'm using my phone to record. So if you've just found the channel, usually I appear on the camera. Usually the video is a bit different to this. So please, obviously, hit that sub, see what we've got. See if you like the content. Certainly, over 2,300 other people do. So hey, they can't all be wrong, can they? Anyway, let's talk about Glasgow Rangers. Now, obviously, at this moment in time, Rangers are out in Germany. The pre-season training camp is underway, and it's a nine day camp near Leipzig in Germany. I'm certainly looking at the images and the photos that are on Rangers Twitter account and also on the Rangers Club website. The players look to be working extremely hard indeed. Michael Beale seems to have a real focus from the players. He seems to be really pushing them on to become the best they can be. And let's face it, he's got a pretty difficult job to do this summer from a number of aspects. I mean, number one, obviously, he's got the situation where he is currently rebuilding the squad, 6 signings in so far, and many pundits projecting up to 10 signings coming in through the door. Number two, he's got the pressure of trying to catch up with Celtic, who did finish ahead of us last season and win two of the trophies. And it does pain me to say that, guys. Really does hurt to actually come out and say that. Apologies if you can hear the rain in the background. But he really has tough job. Not only that, but you've got a situation where he's got to blend together all these players, hasn't he? He's got to bring them together as one team. He's got to bed them in. He's got to change them into a coherent squad, and that's not always an easy task to do. And I think he has obviously been very careful with the players that he selected. Him meeting the players face to face, him going over to talk to players face to face, as I think quite clearly. Sort of got players to buy into his strategy, buy into his ethos, and I think as well as an element of Michael wanting to look these players in the eye and see what they've got and see whether they are the right types of character for Glasgow Rangers. And I certainly think that personal approach that Michael Beale has taken is the best way forward. I still think Rangers do need a sporting director. I think there will be a need for a sporting director to come in next season. I think, asking Michael to coach the team, which is what he is paid to do, and pick the team, which is obviously the main focus of his duties. Let's face it, Michael Beale is one of the best coaches, I think, around at this moment in time. And we don't want to take him off the training pitch. We want him out there coaching the team to become better and become a more coherent unit, and obviously to have a very successful season. We do need, I think, a sporting director there who will negotiate contracts, sign players that the manager identifies. And I think that's a fundamental part of how the trading model and the sporting director model needs to work at the club. It needs to be an element where Michael Beale identifies players, but the sporting director goes out, obviously signs them, negotiates the contracts, negotiates the deals. And that's the way it works. I think it's far too much these days for a manager to do in season to coach a team, to prepare a team, to pick a team, and obviously conduct transfer negotiations, contract negotiations, but not just contract negotiations of players you're signing, but players who are coming to the end of their contracts as well. Something else that does need to be looked at, given the fact that Rangers have let five players who could have, I think, brought in an awful lot of money, walk for absolutely nothing this summer, which in its way is a little bit criminal. And I think Ross Wilson has to take his fair share of blame on that one. So as I mentioned, the Rangers are currently abroad in Germany on a pre-season training camp. And then one of the questions I was asked repeatedly was, who's there, who's not there, who's missing out, who's been left at home? Obviously, a lot of intrigue into this. I think obviously people hoping to put two and two together and get five about players being sold, or players who've fallen out of favour, or players who who perhaps don't want to be at the club anymore. There's obviously names that have been linked with moves away, and we'll talk a little bit about those shortly. But one player who is currently not with the squad training in Germany is new signing Dujon Sterling. Now, this is not for any other reason other than injury. Now, I was reading today in a number of publications that Dujon Sterling has suffered a calf injury and therefore has not travelled with the squad to Germany. It was felt by Michael Beale and the staff that Dujon would be better staying at home in Glasgow and working on his fitness and his rehab at the club with um, the remaining medical staff that were at Ibrox and at Howie. Uh, so the first thing though that came out as soon as this story broke about Dujon being injured was the scaremongering began, the fear mongering began, and it was all Dujon Sterling's got a serious injury. You know, he's injured already. Oh my goodness me, he's going to miss weeks of the season. He's out. He's out. But the club have reassured fans and have reassured the media that this is not the case and that it is an injury that will not keep Dujon Sterling out of pre-season, will not keep him out of games, and he will be returning once obviously fully fit. Now, I know what a lot of you were thinking. This is what we were told with the likes of Tom Lawrence. But I really do think with the reintroduction of Dr. Mark Waller, there is a very different ethos within the medical department, and the club has really decided to make a move forward on the medical side of the side, given how badly last season went in terms of players getting injured, and then suddenly those injuries becoming eminently worse, and the length of time they were out for increasing rapidly. So I think while Sterling is obviously out, and it's not great that he's missing the preseason camp. He's missing, the opportunity for the fitness work, for getting the bonding experience of working with his new teammates. The first extended period of a real focus as a group, and I'm sure Sterling will be chomping at the bit to get back out on the training field and obviously get back out and work with his teammates. But certainly nothing to be worried about, nothing to fear at all. So don't go out there and think, oh my God, he's injured already. I think it's just a very minor injury. Now, one thing that's again come out in the papers today, which is something that I've mentioned on a number of videos now, is the fact that Gio van Bronckhorst didn't get the players fit enough for the season. And again, it's been mentioned in a number of media outlets today that Gio didn't really work enough with the players on their cardiac fitness. It was very much more work with the ball, and that really cost Rangers last season. But we're already starting to see Rangers working exceptionally hard on the aerobic, on the physical fitness side of the actual game. We've seen them working hard in the gym, working hard in the training field, and certainly developing their fitness levels. And that's very encouraging for me that Rangers players are taking this ultra seriously and looking obviously to be a major competitor, not just in Scotland but also in Europe. And being fit, being physically fit and conditioning your body the way that professional athletes do, I think obviously discourages injury. Enables you, if you're a footballer, to play more games, enables you to get more involved, and I think just is a better bet. What is happening with Michael Beale at the moment than what was happening with Gio van Bronckhorst. Michael Beale, as we talked about earlier, when the Rangers director of performance talked about the fact that they are now doing 2 training sessions a day, and really working out in those 2 training sessions to try and get themselves fit and their match fitness and their sharpness and their just sheer physical fitness, but to a level that we really require it at to go on and be successful. So fair play there on that one. Okay, so let's think about Antonio Cholak. Now, Antonio Cholak was one of those 4 players that I talked about earlier who have been linked with a move away from the club. Yanis Hadjiborna Barisic and Glenn Kamara been the other ones. Now, news has emerged that the chief suitors of Tony Cholak, who are Werder Bremen, have to raise the money first if they want to purchase Antonio Cholak. And it's felt that that if they want to bring Cholak in, they are going to have to sell first to bring in funds to fund the transfer of Cholak. Now, given this weakness in the bid and this kind of worry that Tony Cholak will be allowed to move on for a cheap fee. other clubs have now become interested, and that's always positive when you've got more than one club interested. When you've got more than one club interested, there's more chance of getting a bit of a bidding war. Two teams bidding against each other, three teams bidding against each other does naturally force up the price. Now, Cholak cost Rangers 2.5 million and obviously was very successful at the start of his Rangers career, 13 goals in 16 games before obviously injury took over and really did ruin the remainder of his season. Uh, the price, like I said, it is 2 million. Now, reportedly, two Serie B teams in Parma and Pisa have become interested in Antonio Cholak and securing his services. Yes, that's the very same Parma that used to have players like Thomas Brolin, Faustino Asprilla. I think got to a UEFA Cup final against Arsenal, unless I'm very much mistaken. But they're now down in Serie B. Now, it was interesting to hear Derek Clark on Rangers Review talk earlier today, where earlier yesterday, sorry, when he talked about the fact that, it's not necessarily just the transfer fee, it's not necessarily just Antonio Cholak wanting to play first team football. It may also be a consideration of, does he want to leave such a huge club in Rangers? Does he want to, go to another club where he's not going to get, obviously, the situation where he can play in front of such a vast crowd, where he's going to have the opportunity to play Champions League football. Is he going to want to stay and fight for his place? Now, I think a lot of you have touched on it in the comments that he is not really a Beale type player. It doesn't really fit into the system Michael Beale wants to play. But it's interesting that now Italian clubs have become interested, and he does seem to be the man in demand at this moment in time, given his 29 years of age. This really could be a final big move for Antonio, and certainly Antonio Cholak has indicated that he wants to compete for the national team and put himself in a place to be able to do that. So, watch this space. But it does seem that a price has been named to some degree for Cholak. It does remain to be seen whether anyone is willing to pay that in full. So, next of all, now it has been talked about in the media that if Rangers want to buy anyone else now, they are going to need to sell and ship out players, not only to raise funds, but to cut down squad size. Like I mentioned on my earlier video, these four players have been linked with an exit, but it's not just those four there. You've also got Robbie Rotondo, you've got Scott Wright, all linked with an exit. Connor, to some degree, some people get on Tavern Connor's back wrongly. In my impression, there's a number of players. You've really got to look at who could potentially be leaving Rangers this coming summer. Now, writing an article in that was written in a number of different sources has said that Rangers need to sell before they buy. And like I said, that's not just that. The first reason I've just talked about, obviously, is squad size. The second reason is to raise money. Now, Rangers have spent 8.5 million this transfer window, plus obviously sign-on fees and wages and etc., particularly from Jack Butland by all accounts. However, here's the big kind of like the big but, the big however on this matter. Rangers, like I said, spent 8.5 million, but now appear to want to obviously bring funds in before allowing Michael Beale to spend any more money. Now, given the fact that Rangers have spent, confirmed at this moment in time, only 8.5 million, I know what you're saying, only 8.5 million. It's worth it, that's a lot of money. Well, it is when you're not a massive football club like Rangers. It is, like I said, talked of that a number of players will have to leave and money will have to come back in. And that certainly follows the pattern of the last few transfer windows. If you look at Rangers' spends over the last three transfer windows, including the 2020, which was obviously 55 season. Now, during that season, the 2021 season, Rangers spent 11.7 million and brought in 1 million only, so actually made a 10.7 million pound loss on that. But obviously, that was the season we went on to win the championship. We sort of speculated to accumulate. The season after that, in 21-22, Rangers spent just 3.8 million, or 3.68 million, sorry, and got 14.8 million back in return. And this past season, just gone, Rangers spent 17.41 million, but took in 32.32 million So as you can see, 2 out of the last 3 windows, Rangers have made a profit on their transfer dealings, and it looks like they're heading that way again. Now, Rangers, I think you can look at this one of two ways. You can look at this in terms of the board, and those in charge are trying to obviously secure the future of the club. And we don't want to be in the same place that we were in 2012. Um, we want to be in a position where we are strong going forward. We can obviously invest in the European market continually. We can get into the Champions League and compete, and obviously make money from that. Obviously, the Champions League is the cash cow of European football. But looking at those spends, it does seem quite alarming that over the last couple of seasons, the club have taken a profit on their transfer dealings and not actually, reinvested that to some degree in the team. And what other players could have been brought on and brought in if it offered a break-even strategy on some of these prospective contracts. For me, speaking personally about this situation, I think the board obviously promised to back Michael Beale. I think to a certain extent they have done. But and yes, I understand there are players need to go out. The squad is far too massive, but it's also I think a need as well to to look at the squad, to take valuation of the squad, but not just sell for selling's sake. Um, like I said, there is a lot of dead wood that does need to be cleared, and obviously over the next few days, the Rangers will be pushed on that. But it's kind of complicated, really. This situation about money. You know, James Bisgrove said that there was investment in place. There was no need for new investment. There was need, the money was there to back Michael Beale in the transfer window. But is the money really there when you're having to sell to kind of balance the books on transfer dealings and I'm sure make a profit on transfer dealings? So it's certainly something that that needs to be looked at. But it does seem over the last few windows, Rangers have been more concerned about making a profit on their transfer deals rather than actually concentrating on what is important. So very very interesting there, nonetheless. But like I said, it does appear that before Rangers sign anyone else, they will have to start to sell players to raise more money for the club. Well, guys, let me know what you think of our stories this morning, what we've talked about in our video this morning. Obviously, the Dujon Sterling deal. The whole situation with Rangers at the moment is very delicately poised on the Cifuentes deal, on the Danilo deal, and I think a lot of it now does depend on Rangers bringing in money from elsewhere and from the continent to actually go on and invest in the squad further. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know your impressions. Let me know your questions as well. If you've got any questions of any content you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments below. And remember, guys, I need you to do 2 things for me. Number 1, smash that like. And number 2, remember always, we are the people.